Good morning, everybody. As much as I'm trying to slow down on videos, I'm going to post this one the same day I make it, along with the teaching video, because I got up at 2 o'clock today, and I'm doing a little. This will be a quick update, and I'm not commenting a whole lot on Trump and Hillary, and I saw all the debates and Tim Kaine. And let me tell you something. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you know, the vice presidential debate, if the Republican candidate did as terrible as Tim Kaine did, that would have been major news for days on end. But because of media bias and manipulation, I'll tell you why I'm mad. Instead, the immediate narrative was Pence prepared, who is the vice presidential candidate for the GOP. Therefore, look how bad Trump is. Because, quote, he didn't prepare. And I want you to see why I get upset at media manipulation, because there are real tragedies and stories going on in the world. And we are playing such a game in this country. Now, the primary reason the media is so focused on Hillary had a talking point. As far as I'm concerned, the Clintons are a disaster, okay? They're an absolute disaster. And I'm not such a great supporter of Donald Trump. But anybody that would be honest would know the Clintons have corruption. And when you see in the media the comparison of some of the things about Trump's charity, you know, and why is that not equal to what Hillary did? Because what Hillary did is she used her position as Secretary of State in order to get a lot of money from countries that execute homosexuals, that treat women like dogs, Saudi Arabia. And she used her position to get all that money. And the whole media trend right now on did Trump pay federal income taxes, Kaine and all these guys. Anybody that's in real estate that takes a loss, and if you took a huge loss, the loss itself gets written off. That's how that works. And there's such hypocrites. There's such hypocrites. And when I saw Tim Kaine, when the issue of abortion came up, this is going to be short and sweet, maybe not sweet. The reason the media has made the whole thing, Hillary Clinton had a talking point, and the talking point was this: I prepared, and I'm going to prepare for president. Why did they have that talking point come up? Hillary Clinton had blood clots in her brain, which is a very serious thing. And she even had, the media picked up that she had some severe damage medically. And I would venture to say, you never had a more medically questionable candidate ever preparing to, in her idea to get nominated. She's probably the most questionable. You say, John, how could you say that? I told a friend of mine a couple months ago, I said, you know, when she had those blood clots in her brain, and then the treatments that they gave Hillary Clinton, and then the media picked up that she had special glasses she was wearing, that's not a minor health thing, okay? That's a major health thing. And people that have blood clots like that in the brain, and strokes and so forth, she didn't have a minor emergency. She had a major emergency. And Drew, what's his name? The doctor that they fired from CNN, Dr. Pensky or something, he got fired from his job from CNN because he honestly simply spoke the truth. Because they have Hillary on blood thinners and various drugs. And he questioned, he said, why are they treating her? And the reason that there's a huge thing of making health not the issue of the one candidate that has the hugest health issues, which is Hillary Clinton. Just be honest. Just be honest. The thing about her stumbling at the 9/11 event and saying, well, we hid the pneumonia. I'll be honest, I think they're probably lying about that, because they're treating Hillary Clinton in such a way to mask that she has real health problems. And anybody, and I was an EMT for 25 years, when you have blood clots in your brain that cause you to actually go through memory loss, which he claimed, that's not minor. I don't remember any other presidential candidate, and if that was the Republican guy, you would have everybody going for that. But they lie. They manipulate. The biggest disgrace to Tim Kaine is this, besides the fact that he was an idiot the other night, an absolute idiot. But the biggest disgrace is he claims that he's for partial birth abortion, which is the pulling out of a 9-month-old baby from a woman's womb. And when that baby is halfway out, you can go into that womb when it's halfway out, the same child that mothers you have had, and your own mother had you. And when that child is halfway out, you can crush the skull and murder it. And Tim Kaine says he learned to not impose his moral and religious view upon society. And the hypocrisy is this. Are you against murder? Tim Kaine, are you against the murder of a 25-year-old student? If somebody raped and murdered, are you against it? You say, oh, of course. Does the commandment say, you shall not kill? Of course, one of the 10 commandments says you shall not kill. You should not murder. So when you enforce the law against the murder of a child, are you imposing your religious view at that moment? And you're such a hypocrite, because you know rightfully as anybody else that regardless of whether or not your religious view based on the 10 commandments also includes that murder's wrong, you still are willing to enforce the law, which would be the whole idea of you imposing morality. And so he's a hypocrite, because he comes up there and says, that's a woman's choice. Should it be somebody's choice to murder? Does anybody have the choice to murder? And those of you women that have had abortions, I'm not condemning you. Many don't know what the end result was for that. But if you cannot discern, if you cannot understand that a 9-month-old child, that's called partial birth abortion, which Tim Kaine is for, and President Obama was even against signing a bill when he was the Illinois senator to outlaw the baby coming all the way out alive. They called it live birth, protection of a baby that's in abortion and live birth. You can't kill that one. And even Obama, I think he was the only one that wouldn't agree to that when it came up years ago when he was a senator. The hypocrisy, the reason the media is voting, the reason the media is focusing on preparation. I'm listening to NPR radio. The reason they're saying, oh, the preparation of Hillary Clinton, she's not ashamed of being off the campaign trail. The reason she's off the campaign trail is because she has severe medical issues. That's it. Because, and how do you know that, Joan? Please, let's not be stupid. Let's not be so manipulated. Because no candidate in preparation for a debate, no candidate ever announces ahead of time, I'm off the campaign trail because I'm preparing. Do you understand that? Because they don't want to make it look like they're going to have the upper leg on the opponent. But this news cycle and the media is saying what a wonderful thing it is for a candidate to announce ahead of time, I'm off the campaign trail because I believe in preparation. That's a manipulation they did on you. Because no candidate ever announces ahead of time, we're off the campaign trail because we believe in preparation. And that was a spin and a talking point. So what is the truth? She has severe medical issues. And nobody that has blood clots in their brain and then got treated and they hid that. Even Google itself, which I'm on Google, they manipulated the tracking. If you did a Google search for Hillary's medical conditions, Google themselves manipulated what's going to pop up. What a disaster. Bill Clinton said yesterday, he said something that was true about Obamacare. And anybody who takes an honest look at it would tell you the same thing. Obamacare and the rates of people that are working, the rates of people that work have skyrocketed for health care. And Bill Clinton spoke the truth the other day in a speech. And he said, what a disaster it's been for the people working. Well, instead of the media honestly saying and looking at it and saying, that is exactly. But because they're so biased, then Clinton has to come out, Bill Clinton, and say something like, oh, it's the greatest thing in the world. Why don't you just stop lying? Is that possible? Why is it wrong to compare any charity that Trump was involved in, whether he bought a painting of himself or whatever? Because the issue in a campaign, you never had somebody running for president who already had a track record of pay for play with other foreign entities, which is wrong. The collection of money from all these countries, wicked countries like Saudi Arabia. Actually, the people that donated to the Clinton Foundation, the Clintons have become millionaires by doing nothing. Nothing. They produce no product. And I think it's only about 10% of the money from the Clinton Foundation that's actually used for charitable causes. Very low percent. And they've got these huge salaries. And Bill Clinton giving these speeches to wicked countries because of all their connections. Now, the fact is, you never had a candidate running for office who already had a track record of using her position to give access to wicked countries who lined their pockets. That's true, okay? And that's all of that should have been brought out. And if you could think that you could compare a charity that anybody else has to the fact that the woman was in her official capacity doing these things, you never had somebody that already has a proven track record that they cannot be trusted with the position. The whole email server and all, everybody says it looks like a joke. Let me say, just the fact that she destroyed 30-something thousand is obstruction of justice. That alone. And one of the emails that they tried to wipe the server, one of them basically said it was incriminating. So the one that they did get back from the old ones that Hillary Clinton tried to hide was incriminating. It wasn't about birthdays and all that. They actually did enough just in the public for obstruction of justice charges to have been brought against them by the FBI. But we now realize that James Comey might claim to be a Republican, but it's quite obvious that he makes his name by looking that way. Because there was enough that came out that the woman should never have been running at this point. That's it. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It's the corruption. And they have so many years of it. So I'm going to just put this up. I don't want to do a whole lot like that, but look, I've been getting with the guys every day, and We had a good day yesterday, and I just didn't record a lot. So this is what I want you to see. If you're a Democrat, Republican, vote your conscience, of course. But the media manipulation, just the fact that the main news is Hillary, the reason she's off the campaign trail is because she believes in preparation. And Donald Trump, the reason he's on the trail is because he's so irresponsible. When the true story is the reason she's off the trail, the reason the media made it look like, oh, is to cover up and to mask that she has some real health issues. Because nobody has blood clots in their brain to the point where they got certain types of treatment where a doctor by the name of, I think, Penske or whatever, got fired because he himself saw that there was some severe medical issues. And then I hear in the media that Trump's issues are just as severe. I've heard that. Last night, Trump is he'll be the oldest president, 70. Of course, Hillary's 68. So because, and even Fox News does it, and says, both candidates, their health issues are highly in question. You lie. You lie. Russia. I've been talking about Russia, and I could comment real quick. They just gave us an ultimatum. Basically, they said to us, which I told you they were going to say. They said to the Western world, the U.S., we warn you, don't you dare think you could start bombing Assad's forces in Syria, and we're warning you. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to back out, and we're not going to institute anything that they're talking about right now in either side, because that's going to be war over there. And I told you, Russia's willing to engage in a real hot war with the U.S. And the fact that they said this week, we're warning the U.S., don't you dare think you yourselves are going to back up another coup, if you will, another overthrow of another country, like you did in Libya and everywhere else. So the warning's there. And it's not a joke. And they just installed surface-to-air missiles. The media says, oh, it's just a defense. No, they're getting ready to have a war over there with us. Okay? Because we're so manipulative. So remember that one thing. Maybe I'll just title this the 2016. Look at that manipulation. Remember that. You never see the media talk about how a presidential candidate has been off of the trail for a week. And she did this even before the debates. The reason she did it was solely because she has severe medical problems. That's it. And the media plays into it in such a way to turn her medical problems around and to report that both candidates' health is in great question. They lie. And when Tim Kaine would agree that you can pull a 9-month-old baby out of the womb and chop that baby's head off by crushing the skull, which is a form of abortion, to bring it all away, and sucking the brains out, and you have the gall, Mr. Kaine, who was a fool the other night before the whole world. And if that was a Republican candidate, that's all they'd be talking about. And if you don't have the moral integrity to recognize that if you were against the murder of a 25-year-old person, and your own 10 Commandments, Mr. Kaine, says thou shalt not kill, and because your 10 Commandments says you shall not kill, you still would defend the reality that a 24 or 5-year-old girl might have been murdered. You would still prosecute and go after the man who murdered a girl. Why? Because it's not your religious conviction you're enforcing. You're enforcing law. You're enforcing morality, Mr. Kaine. You're imposing your religious moral view that murder is wrong every time you agree that judgment should be meted out on someone who murders another person. And so you're a hypocrite with that argument. Because then you look at the 9-month-old child coming out, which is partial birth abortion, and you would consent to the dismemberment of that child. And you have the goal to look like an idiot, an absolute complete idiot. I saw no righteousness in that guy at all. And I knew he was trained by the Jesuits, and I've told on the Jesuits. And I respected them, and I defend the Catholic faith in many ways, to the consternation of my Protestant friends. But that man is a disgrace. And Hillary has medical issues that are to the point where she should be more questioned than any other candidate. Blood clots in the brain are not a minor thing. And then having medical problems where you masked them. Any other person would have been questioned. And so the media narrative is, well, Trump's health issues might even be worse. I've heard that. Because of his age. Because what hypocrisy. I believe Trump is going to win. And the main reason I think the man's going to win is because the majority of the public now realize media bias. And like me, just hearing the few minutes this morning on NPR News, the public, this is a backlash against the goal and the manipulation of people who go on TV. And they're so, we love and we're compassionate, and that you would agree to something equal to infanticide. Who are you trying to please? If you can't do what is just, then you shouldn't even been running. Okay, so what I do, 20-something minutes? I could teach, supposed to do Samuel, okay? I've been getting with a lot of the guys, and this is just going to be that update. So see that, look into that. These are real issues coming up, and I've just been trying to slow down on some of the videos, and the next one we do should be Samuel, that next one on Samuel, which is David. I'll do prepping. David's gonna be on the run from King Saul, and it's interesting. I'll teach it next, but I'll do a little link here. David had the great victory, obviously, from Goliath, and he was up against all odds. He said, who does this giant think he is coming against this? Who does this uncircumcised Philistine think he is coming against the armies of the living God? And David has this great victory. And he slings the stone. The stone that the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. And that stone sinks into the head of Goliath. Wow. I mean, he's great commander under Saul's military. And then Saul turns against David out of jealousy. And I've taught it all in the teaching that those of you are following. And now at this chapter I'm going to be in, whichever one it is, I forget now, but I know what I'm going to say. I think it's 20, Samuel, but now he's on the run. Now he realized Saul's out to get him. And what a change, what a difference a few years or a few days made. Because as he's on the run, he's going to come to the house of a priest, which I've taught this a lot. And when he comes to the priest's house, he's on the run with a few of his men. He says, do you have any food here? And the priest does not know that David's fleeing from King Saul. And he says, well, you know, all I have is a special bread that only the priest can eat. I don't have the bread just to give you anything, David. He says, no, he lies. David says, I'm on a special mission from King Saul, and that's why you see me like this on the run. And he says, well, if the guys are clean, meaning ceremonially clean, they didn't sleep with women for 3 days. Basically, is that enough? He said, then I could give you the bread. Now, this priest doesn't really know what's going on, but he gives David the bread. And Jesus uses that example in the New Testament, which I've taught a lot. He said, did you not read what David did when he was on the run? How he ate the bread that was only lawful for the priest to eat. Because that was a type of the ministry of Christ. That he and his disciples, like David and his men on the run. though they were not from the law priesthood of Levi, but both from the tribe of Judah, David and Jesus. Yet they were the new priest to come, which Hebrews prophesied of, which I taught. Okay? So that's what you get in the chapter. But notice something. David's now lying. He's got these few guys with him. He's on the run, and he says, do you have any weapons here? I need some weapons. Why don't you have your weapons, David? The priest asked. Oh, because the job was so important. I just had to flee right away on this special assignment. He says, you know what I have here, David? He says, I have this sword that you use to chop the head. He says, I got the sword that you used to chop the head of Goliath off. He used it one time. I guess this will be the chapter. I'll do it right. He used it one time. That great day. He didn't even go into battle with the sword. Remember? Taught it. He went with the sling. Then when he ran up to the giant Goliath, he took his sword and cut the giant's head off. But he wasn't using that sword. He had a great victory that day. But this day that I'm talking about, in this chapter, he's now in fear. And the one weapon that he's able to get back is that weapon he used on the day where he showed great courage. The day where he had to pass the test. And it came back to him. He says, I'll take it. I'll take the sword of the giant. And he even had a reputation. Because the priest said to him, the only weapon here is the one everybody knows about, David. Because you're such a great warrior. He's thinking, oh man, I'm scared here lying to the priest. And here's your great weapon that we all honor you for, David. So he takes it. And then he goes and he's going to hide out with the enemies. He goes to the king of Gath, of the Philistines. Well, what does he do? I should have read the whole thing, but this is it. This is the chapter. And he goes and he says, they recognize that it might be David, this great warrior, who everyone's saying Saul has slain his thousands and David has 10,000. And when David realizes he might be recognized, he starts acting like he's insane, drooling, going nuts. And then the king of the Philistines says, this can't be David. Why'd you bring this madman to me? So what do we see in this chapter? We see David as a great man after God's own heart, lying to the priest, on the run, acting crazy, afraid of both King Saul and all the other enemies. And then we read David when he writes those Psalms. He says, everything was against me at points, at times. But David's going to learn. And he's going to worship God. He's going to praise God. He's going to enter in. That'll be the Samuel. I'm going to do it. That'll be Samuel 20. Maybe I'll call it Clinton. The thing that upsets me. Say, John, you're political. Look, why do you got to lie? Bill Clinton told the truth, okay? About the health care. He spoke the truth. And now the whole manipulation is, how dare anybody, even Bill Clinton, how dare anybody believe that he said something that was true? And that'll be the media. He simply said the truth. He said the healthcare thing has been a disaster for the working man and woman. But the whole media, even if Donald Trump or anybody tries to say, which Trump is saying, if anybody tries to come up and say, oh, look, Clinton said something true, the media will turn it around and say, look at how they're trying to manipulate the words of Bill Clinton. We live in such a lie. We live in this country in such a manipulation. And they do it to you. Don't ever forget that. They do it to you. They don't speak truth. That was chapter 21. How long did I go? This is going to be the Samuel one. I was supposed to go to the ranch, but my daughter has to drop off some dogs. David came to Nob, and Abimelech the priest was afraid. I kind of covered the whole thing already. And David laid up these words in his heart and was afraid. This is when he went to the king of the Philistines, and he changed his behavior before them and pretended himself that he was crazy, and scribbled on the doors. Spit came out. Basically, I told the whole thing already. But that's where we're at, okay? That's, at least I know the chapter, Samuel 21. And so when you have the victories in your life, you say, oh yes, we had great victories. Maybe that sword was somewhat of a reminder to David. Maybe at that moment when the priest said, here it is, maybe David got convicted and said, man, that day I had such great faith. I was willing to lay it all on the line, and look at me now lying to the priest, acting like a crazy man before the enemy on the run. You see? David says, thou hast cast my crown. It says in Psalms, you have cast my crown to the ground. Thou hast done this. You see? God rules in the affairs of men and the courts of men. So, that's the teaching. I did it. I've written a lot of verses down last few weeks. Know ye that the Lord, He is God. It is He that made us and not we ourselves. We are His people and the sheep of His pasture. The other one, I quote another one. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Zion and rejoicing, the people of joy. And then one from Isaiah says this. God Himself showed us from the beginning what He was going to do. Behold, this is the covenant that I have made with them, with the people. My words that I have put in your mouth shall not depart out of your mouth, nor the mouth of your seed, nor the mouth of your seed, from this time forth and forevermore. I have made this covenant with the people. Jesus says, for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they too might be sanctified through the truth. I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Zion, which will not keep silent day or night. You that call upon God for the peace of Zion, give Him no rest until He establishes Zion, His community, His people, as a praise, as an honor in the earth. Also, you're not going to get this video today because it's a teaching one. I started 2 new sites. You'll get it because I'm going to write the notes. I started 2 new sites, iThoughts and Tumblr. So I'm going to try to post to those sites on a regular basis as well. I want a couple more sites just for text. So God bless you, all you guys that are on those sites. And I want to pray for you. Father, I thank you for all of our friends and all of the people. And I ask for you to give us grace, strengthen us, like David when he was on the run. Remind us that it's the word of the Lord. It says, John says in Revelation, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. The sword of the Lord is the word of God. And so, remind us that that's our victory. The blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. I bless everybody watching these videos. In Jesus' name, amen.